Hi, welcome to Ketobiography. I'm your host, Robyn Dobbins. My guest today is a very curious person, and that curiosity led him to the ketogenic diet in 2012. From there, he never stopped experimenting and now uses a carnivore lifestyle to promote healing in his brain and his gut. It's all connected, right? He lives in Germany and has built a free online tool that visualizes what food actually does to your blood sugar and insulin in real time. We connected through Metabolic Collective because he's an active participant and advocate in that community. Please welcome Olaf Kock to Ketobiography. Hello and welcome. So glad you're here.
Hi, Robyn. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, it's lovely to have you. You've mentioned several times in our encounters that we should have this conversation, but I always vet my guests through Casey. He's not the best at vetting guests, but he still said that you should come. I should definitely have you on the show. So good word for Casey there.
Happy that I passed his
you
filter.
pa- you passed Casey's inspection for what that's worth. No, he's yeah. So, but that gave me an opportunity. I love that he's so active in finding new people on Boundless Body Radio because then that gave me the opportunity to listen to your interviews there, and then I was like, wait. Robyn, you like to not know much about people to have a good engaging conversation. So I actually stopped it halfway through because I want to hear from you your story of, well, this journey that you've taken, just kind of being curious and finding the ketogenic diet, the things that it healed, and along the way, and what you're doing now, and then how you're giving back to the community. So, as you know, hey guys, Olaf is a fan. He listens to Keto Biography, so I don't have to explain the whole thing. I'm going to turn it over to you to share that story, and I'll come back later.
Okay, let me start at the end and then I'll wrap around to the beginning. You already said we met at Metabolic Collective, which is the community arm, so to say, of Metabolic Mind. And I came there with a rather physical symptom, so to say, or with a missing physical symptom. So I might be not the typical person to be on Metabolic Collective, but it kind of fits. I am writing a lot of articles these days, and Metabolic Mind always comes in, and there's always a reference that I can bring on to Metabolic Mind, just because the nutritional space is so vast. Now, if we go back, I can pick various places, timelines, basically, to tell. Very briefly, my youth was riddled with quite a severe skin, that is acne, as you kind of expect from a teenager. And a bit later, a doctor recommended, hey, try vegetarian. I've tried that. Didn't change a bit on the skin. And I would say that's as far as I remember my nutritional history from the youth. Now, when it gets interesting is in 2011, and that's where my physical symptoms came in. I was on a business trip to the Netherlands after a full day of training. That is a software training for the customer that I conducted with a lot of pain just in the belly, lower belly. It was just quite painful. I managed to get through the day. Went back to the hotel, and then I figured, I think it's now time for a doctor. Of course, it was after a full day, so it was already evening, and the hotel people said, nope, sorry, no more doctor here. If you want to see someone, you got to go to the hospital. Well, I went to the hospital. They made a couple of changes of tests. One of them I do recall quite vividly, almost made me jump from their table because it was so painful. And it turned out the diagnosis was diverticulitis. Now, for anybody who hasn't heard of that diagnosis, think of the colon, this pipe, and this pipe has a couple of pouches that pouch out, which gives us a couple of compartments where any residue can just collect and get inflamed. So it's kind of out of the way of being pushed through, gets inflamed, and that, depending on the inflammation, on the level of inflammation, can be very painful. So they've immediately pumped me full of antibiotics and then basically put me in a hospital bed. And when I said, okay, let me go back to the hotel and pick up my suitcase, they said, nope, not gonna happen. You are not leaving the building. So that was apparently too dangerous, and they just fed me with a drip for a couple of days, which means nothing to eat, and basically, to this audience, just glucose and salt right into the vein, and antibiotics. Obviously, I survived, and as they told me when they let me go, this is a mechanical condition. These are pouches. They are there. They will stay there. They don't go away. So prepare that this will happen every now and then. It's inevitable. It just will happen. You have a mechanical issue. Well, over the next, this was 2011. Then over the next years, basically until, I'll say recently, they were right. It returned with a little bit of twitching, a little bit of inflammation, and as I could now really locate where is it, it was always clear that, oh, this is another one of the flare-ups. It was almost never as bad as the first time. So just resting the gut a bit, hoping that nothing too bad will happen, yeah, made me go through those episodes. In 2012, I've listened to a podcast on software security, of all chances, and the host talked about going ketogenic. It was basically, it wasn't even called ketogenic back then. It was just change the metabolism to burn fat. And he talked about his experience of how that went. And it sounded so compelling that the nerd in me was triggered. And I said, I want to experience that. I really want that. So I've scheduled a month just to try it out. Fun fact, I've listened to the podcast in June, but that is the middle of berry season here. I'm in Germany, so Northern Hemisphere. This is when all of the nice and sweet things are there. So I said, by no means will I end the berry season in its highest, like in the highest season, in the best part. And then when I come out of that, there's no more berries. So I took a couple of months, and on 1st of September, I've said, okay, now they're getting more expensive. Now I'll try. And until then, I've educated myself. What should I do? So I was well aware of keto flu and of electrolytes and how to do that. Was very well prepared. Started it, and that month, September 2012, is a month that never ended. I just had no reason to end this test. Coming back to the diverticulitis, or then diverticulosis, that's when it's not inflamed. It was always in between, so coming back, coming forth. Well, actually, I didn't want to get out of ketosis because of just the clarity of mind. I never had a problem with not being on top of my mind until I saw what is possible. Then in hindsight, it was basically, now, why didn't anybody tell me that before, that this is a normal thing? Okay, back to the gut. every now and then I've had a little flare up, and then I managed to just, I don't know, ignore it, and then it went away. And the standard of care is basically eat low fiber during that time. But of course, after that, you should get loads and loads and loads of fiber, as everybody should. Okay, fast forward. This is just every on and off and on and off. And then during, I don't know, 2020, 21, I can't really recall, I figured that one of my favorite foods reliably triggers inflammation. And that is almond butter. I can recommend to anybody who can tolerate it, almond butter in plain yogurt. I love that. It is such a good taste. And I have realized every time I've had it, inflammation flared up. Tested it, went a week without, no complaints. Tried it once again, inflammation. Well, good, can't have almonds. And then I found a couple of other foods that were not as clear, but they also triggered it. And with just listening to podcasts ever since 2012 on nutrition, carnivore comes in more and more. And I said, right, okay, let's try it. And that was 2024. Oh, actually, there's one episode in between. 2023, I've had another big flare-up, which also got me to the hospital, but that was only the emergency room because it was on a Sunday and no doctor was there. But it was painful enough that I said, okay, I'll visit the hospital. And that was just an astronomical CRP value, so really heavy inflammation. And after that, I figured I got to do something. And I was very motivated to try on more things. In 2024, then finally I said, okay, let's try carnivore. It can't be that bad. Let's try it. And I did. Transitioned into carnivore because I do like my omelet with some onions and mushrooms and so on. It was always good. And ever since I've started ruling out every plant, we'll come to the exceptions later, there was no more inflammation whatsoever. Apart from, now I can say 2 episodes. Back then I said 1 episode because a couple of months in, I've just invited my parents for dinner. We've had some steaks. And while I've prepared the plates, I didn't really pay attention. And suddenly there were 3 identical plates in front of me with steaks, mushrooms, and onions. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, idiot, you wanted to have 2 plates with plants and 1 with just meat and add butter. Well, it didn't hurt me so far. I've survived until here. So I ate what I prepared myself. So I know exactly what is in there. And nothing was suspicious. And that night, I've had another flare-up of an inflammation, which basically told me, okay, to me, it's not really worth figuring out which exact plant is it that is problematic, which one can I tolerate more or less, which one can I tolerate not so much. I was like, I don't know. It's just not worth it to me to try out every single little detail. So I've just ended those experiments more or less back then. And the other, I've said 2 flare-ups that I've had. They were really tiny, but it was noticeable. And the other one was when I figured one evening, yeah, this is a nice evening. We're sitting here and there's some stuffed peppers and olives. So I've had, I don't know, 1 or 2 of each. Not worth it. So another flare-up. Ever since then, I've basically stayed strict. And there are 2 exceptions, which I, as I say, I can go without them. I can stop them anytime if I want to. Guess which they are?
That's funny. So not at all the addicts mantra there. I could stop anytime. Something that you would eat. Oh, you said berries. You love berries. So do you still
It
eat
starts
berries?
with a C. It is the one plant that I probably consume the most. Starts with C and ends with offie.
Oh, coffee. Ah, yes. The whole coffee debate on whether or not
Yes,
coffee keeps you carnivore, which I think is
I can
foolishness.
stop
But
anytime.
yes, of course. Me too. I can stop anytime. And then I don't know.
No, the
Now
other one is occasionally, like really occasionally, some wine.
yeah, I was gonna say it
Which
must be
is
another
really
drink.
dry wine, because anything that is remotely sweet to my taste buds from a month in. So literally a month into keto, my taste buds changed so much that if I have a strawberry, it is borderline too sweet.
That's
Like
exactly
pineapple, I
how I
can't have
feel
it.
about them.
Yeah,
I
pineapple can't have it. It's
no.
disgusting,
Yeah,
disgustingly sweet.
it's too sweet. I get that completely. Well, since I've interjected, I'm going to go ahead and continue interjecting.
Yep.
I do know about diverticulitis, and that first hospitalization in the Netherlands. So those pockets, they actually had an infection inside of them. Is that why it was so like they wouldn't let you leave the hospital? Did that become just a widespread infection in your body?
No, it's not widespread, but if there is inflammation and you add mechanical stress through moving, through doing this or that, it could rupture. And you can imagine that a rupture in the colon is not the best for like the best for continuing with life, basically,
Right.
especially if you're not right in the hospital.
Right. Yeah, that could be awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. So that sounds. Thank goodness you went to the hospital, and I don't know whatever happened to your bags, but hopefully you got your belongings back from the
Well,
from the hotel.
I managed to call the hotel and actually have them pack my luggage and send a taxi to the hotel, promising like I can meet the driver and show my ID, so that it's not a random person calling the hotel saying, hey, go to room 401 and collect all of the stuff in there and send it somewhere in the city.
Yeah, that's a
So
strange thing. Like I've never thought about that before, but I'm sure that happens. People think things happen. You're not necessarily home when these things happen, and yeah, I'm sure there's a plan in place that I've never had to use before, so I have no idea that that exists. So, you were on this ketogenic diet for a lot. I mean, you're an early adopter. I found it in 2017. So again,
mhm.
like you said, they weren't even calling it like a ketogenic diet at the time. So you kind of stumble on that, and of course, you're a curious person, so you start looking things up. What did your food look like at that time when you were what you would classify as keto?
I'd say the typical breakfast was an omelette. That is, I can't recall the number of eggs, but quite a lot. I've always said my morning meditation is cutting down onions and mushrooms. I typically cut them very small, so it is a real meditation state that I was in, so to say. Always annoyed my partner back then, who was interrupting me, which got me out of my flow state, so to say. I just couldn't stand it. I was best when I was just alone in the kitchen and just cut down all of the stuff that I wanted. It's typically onions, spring onions, like the leafy onions, and some mushrooms, rarely something else, and cheese. And then everything else, I would say back then it was more or less classic dishes, just without the starch. So when there was, instead of spaghetti bolognese, I just had the sauce, just the bolognese.
Yeah, I used to do that too. It's so good.
It's, yeah, I like it. And did a lot of experiments just with random stuff. Everything is better with, if you bake it with cheese, everything is better with butter. And back then we found a farmer who was just selling his beef in larger portions to a very good price. So basically you get 1/8 of a cow, all pieces, and all were separated, labeled, and so on. And you just get a whole 1/8 of a cow. And well, that went on for a while until he stopped working as a farmer. He's now a pensioner. So he's retired. And I had to find another source now for the beef, but I found one, and that one works well. So what else was there? No, I'd say that, yeah, all of the meals were more or less the classic meals, just without pasta, without rice, with extra butter. And I've made the joke when I was in a restaurant, just saying, like, hold the potato, just add some extra butter. And by the way, for your information, nobody has ever brought me more butter than I wanted to eat. Which
Yeah,
I later
I
had to
travel
correct.
with my own butter because nobody ever gives me enough.
Yeah, I've later on had to correct that to finally 2 people who actually brought me more than I wanted. One actually brought, but butter in Germany is sold in different portions than in the US. So here it's 250 gram, which is roughly half a pound, like very roughly half a pound. And he just brought one of those packages, the retail packages, on a plate and said, I bet this is enough. I was like, oh yeah, this is actually enough. So
This will work to keep me full. Well, you know,
yeah,
like I said, I travel with butter, but here in the US, our butter is often mixed with like hydrogenated oils, or it's just
yeah.
margarine and they're calling it butter. You can't trust it. So luckily you do live in an area when you ask for butter, you get butter. It's just never enough.
Well, I
So,
have, sometimes I have to make sure.
mm,
But I do recall I was in a hotel where I've asked if if he could prepare my scrambled eggs with butter, and he said sure, and grabbed a plastic bottle with something. And I said, excuse me, I meant butter, as in coming from a cow. And he's like, yeah, this is butter. And I was like, this is the first time that I've seen butter being distributed in a bottle. And he showed me the label, which basically said, I can't remember the exact name. It was in the Netherlands as well, but unrelated to my prior story. It was basically a product that said to bake and fry. So it said the purpose on there, but none of the ingredients. And I was like, okay, no, sorry, I don't want that. I'll take the boiled eggs.
yeah,
And I
it's
did that.
unfortunate. It is unfortunate. I think the real problem here is not that these products exist, is that we've allowed them to take on the names of
Yes.
something that they should not be named, or even live in the same space in the grocery store. Like they should have their own section. In my head, they should not be allowed to call whatever that monstrosity was butter. I feel
Oh,
bad for all the cows.
there is a big discussion, or there was a big discussion in the EU, because rumor was that the EU wanted to regulate names like sausage. If it is a sausage, it must have meat. if it is this, it must have that, and so on. So can an oat milk be called milk?
No, it should be
And so
called.
on and so on. So
It should be
that was
called water filtered through oats. That's what it should be called.
no, but that was a big discussion here, and the reason, well, the argument from, let's say, the vegan side, who wanted to have that. I just use vegan now as a direction of everybody who thought this is ridiculous to do that. They figured, oh yeah, it's better to have them anyway. So if somebody gets misled and thinks this is milk, that's good. And
right. Yeah.
I don't know where the discussion went. I think it went nowhere. But it was a big discussion probably a year ago.
Then you go towards this more carnivore lifestyle, which includes coffee and an occasional wine.
Mm-hmm.
What did you notice as changes? Because in the very beginning, you said you joined Metabolic Collective because of an absence of symptoms. So now I'm like, what? Well, I'm curious of what you mean there. But you also mentioned mental clarity. So thinking back on everything, what has this carnivore diet helped in your case?
I'd say the main part that it helped was I had the focus before, so mentally it didn't change anything. In focus, in feeling well, it didn't change anything. That was all very great with keto already. What it changed was absolute peace in the gut. So just literally nothing anymore, apart from the two situations when I tried, can I have this or not? And I figured I can't. And ever since then, I'm more or less strict. Everybody says, oh yeah, it's hard, it's so restrictive. How can you do that? But my answer is, well, my motivation is I can stay this way and have no symptoms, or I can continue to eat the way I did eat before and add in antibiotics from time to time, feel bad, risk some severe inflammation. I can tell you a CRP value of 129 is not fun.
Well, that's a lot of inflammation, for sure.
Yes. So I am a lot better without that. Now, how did I find Metabolic Collective? Number one, I've been listening to podcasts ever since, I'll say 2002, which is a time before it was called podcast, but it was just downloadable MP3 files somewhere from the internet. And then later on, podcast was coined as a term, and then Apple came into the ecosystem, and then podcasts exploded. And that is my natural way of getting information. And listening to podcasts on keto, on ketogenic uses was a second nature. So I barely listen to music. I rarely listen to music, but I listen to podcasts. So Metabolic Mind was on my list. I've had that. And you've mentioned in the beginning, I've built another site to explain what I did to people. And when I pitched that to Casey, that happened to be while he was with you in Las Vegas, which was that some conference?
It was at the COSI conference, yeah.
The COSI conference with the famous watering hole costume.
We don't have to mention that. Yes,
as you said back then, it's now on the internet. It's public.
It's on the internet forever. Me dressed up in my 80s workout outfit to have Casey show everyone different exercises. So I'll just do a little plug. That's on Metabolic Collective's YouTube channel. You can go there and see it. It's it's definitely also on my YouTube channel if you want to look for it, and you can see me in all of my aerobics glory, but it was fun to do. So
It is fun,
I do
and it
remember
makes
him telling me about you during that trip.
and it,
I forgot, but you just made me remember that he talked
yeah.
about you at the trip.
So that video makes it unmistakably clear that it has been recorded in color and not in black and white.
No, that's true. There's very vibrant colors on the outfit. But
Yeah.
if you're gonna do it right. And I'm leaning into the silliness factor for that. So, yeah, let's go into. Well, actually, I have before we go into the thing that you've developed. You talk about all these podcasts, and I think people are curious. What podcasts that you listen to? Like, what are your top? I always listen to it. I get it. Ketobiography's #1 on the list. I totally get it. Boundless Body is probably like 130. So somewhere in between there. Which ones which ones have you found the most useful? And I'm asking this because I've been to several conferences where Dr. Ken Berry was on the stage, and he would say, like, this movement starts with us, like the grassroots level.
Yep.
And if you want to start a podcast, just push play. If you want to do this, just do this. And I can't find another person really that has just, like, I was reading a book and then I went and did some research and they never listened to a podcast. Everybody has gotten their information. You can learn all about this. It's just living free on the internet on these podcasts. So which ones have you found the most useful for your journey?
Let me think of those that frequently jump to the top of my queue. Well, actually, all of the nutrition related ones jump to the top of my queue, and then there's others that just are more for fun, or are just people talking about different topics. There is, well, of course, Boundless Body, Ketobiography. What I do like on particularly these is that they are truly a labor of love, and you, as well as Casey, didn't go in to monetize all of them. What really annoys me is just interjected ads that suddenly come in such a different voice that you should buy something. I just cannot stand it. And it's so refreshing to see that there is actual community output in there. I don't know if you have plans to monetize. I can blame nobody to do so, because it is hard work and it is a lot of work, and I don't blame anyone if they monetize. It's just, I do recognize and I do love it when it's not. So those are good. There are a couple of ones that are monetized, but typically with host read ads, they're way less annoying. Let's say Vinnie Tortorich is actually quite entertaining in the way he does the ads, and those are rarely skipped, even though from this side of the ocean, they don't do too much to me. So I can't really I can't really buy that stuff anyway, but the way he does the ads is quite entertaining, and the way he talks about his message is also. I do really enjoy the informative and very calm style of Anthony Chaffee, Sean Baker. So basically the big ones, but they're just so calm and so, like, know about their references and obviously know what they're talking about, that I do like them. I do enjoy them. Actually, for the rest, I'll probably have to look them up. I might miss.
You are a consumer of information, and that's very
my
impressive.
current podcast waiting list. The queue has, let me see, order of magnitude 60, loading 61 episodes.
Well, I got all of my start. Everything that I knew, everything I learned was completely through Vinnie Tortorich and his NSNG message. That certainly got me kicked off. And then I'm always impressed with Dr. Chafee and how he can just like pull a study up, like just
He's
even like
encyclopedic.
he really is. It's so impressive. I'm like, how do you even do that? It's just not something I can do. And if you're not already listening to it, I would highly recommend listening to the Feldman Protocol. That's
Mhm.
Dave Feldman's
Yeah.
podcast. So if you're not already listening to that, that's a long form one. It takes me forever to get through an episode, but that's what's beautiful about it. In that long form, you just go so much deeper, and that's the conversation he wants to have, is these deeper conversations. So
I
I
have a dog, and he's not talking back when we're walking, which makes it easy to listen to some episodes.
That's what I do too. So it takes me a while. Several dog walks will get me through one of those episodes, but they're always so good. I enjoy them a lot.
Mhm.
So now let's transfer into this other world where you were inspired to, well, a couple of things. You developed a tool, like a real-time tool that you can explain a little better than I can, but also you've gotten into like writing. So you're doing like articles and stuff on your
Yep.
website. So please tell me all about that.
Okay. So let's say I've had a little bit of time at my hand, which means that the company that I've been working for quite a while decided they don't want me to continue that. But due to German occupational law, I've had quite a while until the contract actually got terminated, and they immediately did not want to see me there, which means I had a lot of time at my hand, and I figured I could actually refresh my knowledge on a couple of techniques, or gain some knowledge in techniques that I haven't used before. So I needed a topic. I am a web person. I'm a software person. I didn't develop software, at least not commercially, in a long time. I've sold software. I've trained software and consulted with people on the use of software. But everything that I've used, that I've developed, was more or less demo quality, or a very small portion of something that stands alone. Now, with a bit of time at my hand, I figured all of the time, ever since 2012, I have been explaining what I am doing to people by saying like, oh, there's this blood sugar roller coaster, and then there's insulin coming up with blood sugar, and it always required a piece of paper, different pens in different colors, and just saying, here it goes up. And I got tired of that. So I said this can be automated, which I did. Found a great domain, which works well in the German world, but needs spelling in the English world. Sorry about that. And I've just automated that, saying you can now generate such a diagram, like blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up, and then analyze the curve that you see under different conditions. And it's actually not real time, but it's faster than real time, which means you can directly learn. That's a difference to a CGM. If you wear a CGM and you eat something, then you can see it actually develop in real time. You can see where your blood sugar goes. You cannot see where your insulin goes and when does it go down. And with this simulation, you can see both. You can see blood sugar go up, insulin go up, and it goes considerably faster than what your actual body does to the digestion and to all of the glucose and so on. So you
if
can.
someone is wearing a CGM, there's a simulation. But if somebody's wearing a CGM and they're getting their glucose numbers, can they go into the simulation and be able to see potentially then what's going on with their insulin based on those numbers?
No, Not that. So it's how it works is you have the simulator on screen. It works best on an actual desktop screen, not on a mobile screen that's just tiny with all of the controls that you have, all of the inputs that you can do. You'll open that. You'll see a graph, which is just a graph which will develop. It's empty when you start. And on the left side, actually, I have to change that for video. So on the left side, you'll see a list of meals. And as soon as you run the simulation, you just click one of the meals, and the time ticks and runs, and the simulation tracks how fast does glucose rise, how fast does insulin rise, and then it goes down, and until you click the next meal. And those are, I have it here on my screen. Let's say the very first ones are oatmeal with berries, scrambled eggs with cheese, avocado toast. They're just a couple of standard meals, which you can add your own choices to if you want to, but I come with a couple of selections, and then you can see how does that develop. You can also create a full plan for the day where you see at 8 o'clock, I do eat this. At 12 o'clock, I do eat this. And there's also a couple of samples for that, which you can then simulate all in one. So you can say, here is my plan. I don't do it interactively. I don't wait until 4 hours in and then click what I want to eat, but I'll just make a plan with a time. And I say, simulate that, and you have an instant simulation of the blood sugar and insulin there.
So, like, I've often, in my brief stint as coaching, I would ask my clients to plan ahead in like a carb tracker app and plan ahead. But what you're actually doing is even more than that, is actually showing the body's response to eating those meals in a different, much more visual way. So everybody who's listening right now, I actually have it up on my screen as well. And what we're going to do at the very end of this, so that nobody has to like click away and come back, Olaf's going to give us a simulation of the simulator. And what I'll do is I'll clip it as its own short, so you guys will be able to find it on Ketobiography's YouTube channel, the simulation of the simulator on the website. But so when you were making this, what was your ultimate goal? What do you want people to gain from using your simulator?
So the very obvious part is the interactive simulator. The next part is the simulate a full day in one go immediately. What you can see in there, if you know how to read the diagram, is how high does my insulin go? How long does it go higher than normal? So it's basically not the actual where's the peak, but it's how big is the area under the graph. That is the key if you want to lose weight, if you want to do anything that requires having an eye on insulin, then you can see that simulated quite well. You'll need to know how to read the graph for that. So it might be geared towards coaches a bit more than the uneducated, just occasional user. However, there's another piece in there which is not that obvious, which is a full report on a day plan. This is one of the algorithmic parts which I have not yet fully refined. So it has its limitations still, but it shows you the general direction where you can basically say, this is what I want to eat throughout the day. If I continue that to eternity, or for, let's say, 12 weeks or for a year, how does that, or what does that do to my metabolism? And it will show you funny numbers, but it shows you the right direction. So it tells you if you continue this, you'll get insulin resistant. If you continue this, you'll get insulin sensitive. Your weight trajectory will go up or down with this way of eating. And the interesting part is that the simulation actually makes a difference. I've tried that just with a standard diet. If you use something that resembles kind of the standard diet, and you distribute it, as any dietitian will tell you, into small meals every 3 hours throughout the day, 6 small meals, do this, do that. When you pipe that into the long-term simulation, you get a different results than when you just condense them all into a very small interval fasting eating window. So you eat exactly the same thing, and the long-term simulation shows into different, shows you different directions. That part is the least developed. So you'll see the numbers will go to a floor which doesn't really make sense, but the direction makes sense already. And that is something that I still want to work on. And then also what you can also do is you can set your own metabolism, your own metabolic profile in there. You can say, I would like to see how does this look with a healthy metabolism? How does that look with a pre-diabetic or with a diabetic metabolism? And when you're really adventurous, you can create your own profile, and you can say, I do inject insulin, and then you can also artificially insert insulin as well and see what happens with the blood sugar if you do use insulin, and how easy is it to chase the blood sugar when you are on a high carb diet versus a low carb diet.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was going to be my question. Like, can you change it for someone who's extremely insulin sensitive, or, like, can you make those adjustments? Because obviously the response is going to be a lot different. So I'm glad you thought ahead on that, because everybody's unique, and again, this is a simulation, so it's not going to be precise. But you've made it so that it can be pretty darn close. How much
it's meant to be educational, not lab values. So it should give you an indication. There is, for example, there is no sport. If you trigger gluconeogenesis through sport, it's not in there. You can only add food. That's it. Period.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense too, because so many other things are just high stress or something like that could affect your actual. Your actual numbers. We're just looking at
I'm
simply food.
toying with the idea of adding that as well, but I don't know if anybody will go through those means and play with it that much. However, if I get demands for it, I'll be happy to add them.
Right.
It won't be hard work.
So I think that we should go ahead and take the time to kind of switch over to a shared screen view, so that you can show everyone. Again, we will put this part specifically as its own short, so that it's easily searchable in the Ketobiography YouTube page. But go ahead and share your screen and show us what you've described.
And I'll also try to make the audio section very descriptive. What we see here is the simulation screen. It's easy to reach from the homepage. You just follow the graph, and you can't miss it. It's just the first item in the menu. The interactive simulation is quite easy. Typically, when you're here for the very first time, there is an interactive tour which starts here. You can recall that every time with a little compass, which you see on the top right. And there is an additional textual information, which you can also reach through the question mark top right. So these are always places that give you more information to what can I do here. And the tour will give you the information that this one is the interactive graph. Here are the controls for the simulation for starting it. And here's the meal selector. Well, it says so it's quite obvious. And then you have a couple of others. Let me open the event log here as well. Now, starting the simulation, I'll just run it. And I might be somewhat erratic. I'm not really planning a full meal here. As you can see, the graph now is starting to run, and we get regular glucose. I'm doing nothing, so it's quite stable. And let me eat something very non-carnivore, because carnivore curves or carnivore graphs are just boring. So I'll go with high sugar parts here, and you can see this continues. This is 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, the time here. And I can add something more. You see the glucose up here, and you see the insulin here in the blue curve. Let me add pancakes, which add quite a steep curve. There's a little pop-up that tells you what's in there. I do use fast carbs and slow carbs, as well as protein and fat. And you see the pancakes trigger something different, like a different curve than, what was this, oatmeal with berries do. And if I add a beefsteak, you can see that almost nothing happens. It just goes up and to the baseline. And all of the meals you can see here, those are the indicators. This is when you ate the meal to begin with. And this interactive simulation covers 16 hours. And that's it. So at the end, you can just accelerate it. I'll just accelerate it and finish it. And those will be 16 interactive hours. And then I can look at the simulation result. Here, I can see what did I eat. And then I can save this as, this is a typical day, for example, which here it won't be, but you can go ahead and do that. There are the day plans that I've mentioned. And those day plans, a couple of standards are here, loading. I don't know why it takes so much. So there are a couple of standards that you can just copy. And on top here, we have the day plans that I have already created. And here, if I use the low carb day plan, I can just go in and simulate that immediately in just one go. I'll simulate that. And of course, now when I demo it, it's slow. And we can see this is a quite nice glucose curve and works quite well, I would say. That is something that actually looks quite nice. Actually, let me see. This is still remembering my my old algorithm. I have tuned it a bit. So with a newer algorithm, glucose actually goes down during the night and then comes up during the morning and goes down in the evening. And here you see all of the meals. On the left side, you can see there is a cortisol event in the morning. Then we have butter with scrambled eggs at, what is that, 8 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, we have entrecote and butter and cauliflower cheese at 3 o'clock. I have done some experiments with it, so this is definitely not a interval fasting plan. But all in all, what do we have here? 2,200 calories. And then we have a sleep onset in the end, which means the body does not generate too much glucose anymore.
And it's a strikingly different curve than the one with the oatmeal and the pancakes with maple syrup.
Actually, just for fun, let me go in and show you the standard diet. Standard diet, this one. Simulate that one, and you will immediately see something is different in this one.
Oh, wow.
So this is an absolute roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
And what you can see here is as well, there are two graphs actually. There is a very thin graph and a rather heavy graph. And with the parameters, you can see I'm comparing my healthy profile, which is the foreground, with a pre-diabetic one. I would say typically you want to do it the other way around. So when you simulate a pre-diabetic profile, how would that work? How would that compare with a healthy profile? And then you can see the difference that way. But it goes in either direction. It works in either direction.
Okay, I'm glad you did that. So the parameters part, that's where you can put in perhaps being pre-diabetic. I see it says healthy, pre-diabetic, and type 2 diabetic. So you can simulate based on those three presets.
Yes. Well, on the presets, or you can create your own one. which I have done. Let's say I have a healthy one. You can set your fasting glucose, your fasting insulin, and your insulin sensitivity.
So that would be just you're going to go have some blood work done after you have your numbers or your
Yes.
results back from the blood work. You can input it into the system.
Yes. And then this is where you can also check, I do inject insulin, and then you can artificially inject insulin as well.
And put the times on there.
Yeah. It's like, when do you typically do the basal injection? How much do you inject basally? How well do your beta cells function? So is it really a full T1D? Is it 0%, or is it just impaired? Is it just, do they still work but not that well? Or are you T2D? So your beta cells function by 100%, but you still inject insulin. Nobody knows why you do that, but it's because the doctor tells you so, and nobody knows why the doctor is telling you.
So, Olaf, this looks like it took a lot of work, and you have it. It's very interactive. This should be thousands of dollars.
Yes, it should.
How much? How much do you charge for people to go? In fact, you didn't say your website name. So, how much do you charge people on your website to have access to this incredible tool?
Surprise, surprise, this is all a personal project. This is not my business. So naturally, on top of everybody here, every listener here getting a 50% discount, the whole site is absolutely free, but you get it for half.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that gift to my listeners.
And the reason is, number one, this is a hobby. Number two, nobody who can make use of this knows that they need it. And once they have used it, they had the insight and they won't pay for it anyway. So nobody would pay for it anyway, because as long as they should pay for it, they don't know that they should pay for it. So it doesn't really make sense. Plus, I have used it as getting to know some of the technologies that I didn't work with before. I've always been around web, but there's so much techniques and technologies that I didn't work with that I figured I might as well get used to it.
Sometimes the personal benefit of doing the thing is way more than any financial benefit could ever replace.
Yes.
So I get that 100%. So how do people find this tool? And then are you available to help someone if they're just trying to figure out how to learn it? And if so, how can they find you?
Okay, so the name, I'll switch half to German for that. To anybody who is used to listen to German, they will recognize this. So think of the German idiom Butterbei die Fische, which has a direct translation of butter with a fish, which means let's get down to brass tacks, is one of the translations that I found to it. So talk clear text, direct language, we'll talk now, and we mean it. And the site is, again, German pronunciation, butterbei.de, which is butter, as in the English spelling, BEI.de. And I picked that domain because I figured my main language is German. English is my second language. The market, like the ketogenic market, is well covered in English. So I can't really add anything on top in English, but maybe in German. Though almost every content, I would say 97% of the content are available in English and in German. And I'm editing both. I do machine translation, but then edit the translation to a form that I would write, to use vocabulary that is not too fancy and that is vocabulary that I would know. So you probably don't need a dictionary because it's being edited by an English as a second language person.
I like that, though. That keeps the language simple and easy to understand. And I think that's a community that we miss when we elevate the language a little bit too much.
Yeah. And when I built this simulator, I had I was wondering, what should I do with the simulator? Should I continue to work on it? Will people come back? So I figured, let's write a couple of articles. And this is something that we didn't really talk about. And as soon as I started writing those articles, I figured I had found my tone for it. Some of them are rants, some of them are educational, some of them are educational rants, and some genuinely surprised me. So there is a series, for example, actually, we can stop the screen share now, I guess, because we don't really need to read along with the article. But there are a couple of articles on there that look at the German nutritional recommendations or the guidelines. And I was very surprised to see that it's called DGE, the German Nutritional Society, is claiming that they're all science-based. And then they link a couple of pages about the scientific basis of their guidelines. And in there, they list the science that is used to create them. And everything that I found there is math. So they talk about how to optimize something. It is proper science, but everything they list on the page where they say these are the scientific backgrounds or the scientific ways that we came up with this recommendation, everything there is math. Nothing is nutrition. And they're optimizing in a way that they get their regular, 60% of carbs, maximum 10% of saturated fat, because those were parameters that they gave the optimizer to optimize. So what is the best diet that you can recommend, given that you must limit saturated fat intake to 10%, given that you must limit this to that, given so several parameters. And what fun fact, when you ask an algorithm to optimize something and the algorithm gives you exactly your limits, you can be sure that the optimum is higher than the limit that you artificially gave it, because it's just staying within its rails. It cannot escape that, but it says, okay, given that you can't have more, this is the optimal. It probably wouldn't find that maximum value if the optimum wouldn't be higher. There would be a big random event. And also, I figured I am living carnivore. I am fully within the recommendations of the German Nutritional Society, because they explicitly state who their recommendations are for. And those are healthy people aged 18 to 65 who eat a mixed diet. So yes, I am between 18 and 65. I am not healthy, as we have determined in the beginning of this interview, and I don't eat a mixed diet. Then I've looked at what are the criteria. Now, my expectation for nutritional guidelines would have been they're healthy, they're promoting health as number one. Question for you, what do you think? Do they, number one, prioritize health? Or number two, do they prioritize health at all? This is a rhetorical question.
I don't think they prioritize health at all. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they started the process of coming up with all of this stuff because they were worried about health. But I think it's a common misconception that it is, in fact, about health. There's nothing healthy about the recommendations, and it all ties into pharmaceutical use, in my opinion.
The weights that they state explicitly are 40% maximum. There's 40, 30, 30 in percent. That makes 100% of weights, but 40% of the weight is we don't want anybody to change their habits too much.
Well, you don't want to make it inconvenient for somebody to become healthy. That's just silliness.
That's the
But
main focus. That's
yeah,
40% of everything. Everything else is lower than that in priority. Like,
yeah,
that alone is ridiculous. Now,
yeah.
the 30-30, I can't tell you which one is higher than the other because they're both the same. One is reduction of, I might be a little bit imprecise with the translation, reduction of sickness burden. Notice this is reduction. This is not minimizing.
It's not
And
elimination of sickness either. It's
right.
just
It's reducing sickness. If that is a percent below, you have met your goal. If that is 100% below, you have met your goal. But you don't state, my goal is eliminating or minimizing or something like reduction. And the third one, actually, now I'm blanking. There's an article on that.
yeah, I'm gonna say you could go to the website and read the blog, and they're scientific in that you are interested in the science part, but they're also not. They're also, you explain some stuff. There's a little bit like I'm looking at the hamburger hyper vegetarian one because that's something a lot of us don't look at. We're see this nice big juicy hamburger, but it's just a little tiny slab of meat and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we can't compare eating a hamburger to a vegan diet because it's almost the same. You just have this little tiny piece of protein in there. So very interesting articles, and I feel like you have found a voice here, and this is amazing. This is a true advocacy. I'm really into the advocacy stuff. So this is truly a true adventure for someone to go on, to go look at this simulator and see what could potentially happen if they eat these foods on an actual graph. You might have to go and learn how the graph works, but I think it's pretty, like, you see a steep thing, you see a thing go down, like, that's pretty telling when what you want is as close to level as possible. So you're really helping people out by being able to see that, and before they put it in their mouth. Like you said, with the CGM, my husband wore CGM like a couple years ago, and we were at his parents' house, and it was a holiday, so there was all kinds of desserts there. He's like, I'm eating this pie because I have to do this experiment to see how, and I was like, you just need like 2 bites of the pie, but he ate the whole slice.
Of course.
And of course you're going to eat the whole thing. I was like, you only need 2 bites. And it does give you information, but you had to consume it to get there. And this eliminates that consumption piece, which for somebody who struggles with sugar addiction, that stops them from putting it in their mouth. They can see it right there. They don't have to do it.
Plus you get the insulin as well.
And the insulin piece as well. Exactly. Because it's hard to figure out, how quickly your insulin is coming in to do its job, how long it's up there. It's hard to see all of that stuff. And you are actually giving us a visual on that. But we have run out of time, and it's actually time for my cup of coffee, my 1 cup of coffee a day. So, Olaf, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show today. Like I said, I will turn that into a little short, so anybody who wants to see your demonstration, that'll be available to you. Again, where can people find you and connect with you?
So my site is butterbei.de. Again, butterbei.de. You'll have to live with a German domain. Casey was very happy about my personal site because that is still unchanged. That is terribly out of date. .com.
Yes. Terribly out of date.com.
But Butterbei or Butterbei die Fische is the current one. And if you want to reach me, there's a feedback button on the bottom right of every page. If you want me to reach you back, give me your email address. If you want to create an account on there, you can do that with just a pseudonymous name and try it out. You can add your own plans, and if you sign in with an actual account, you can recall it next time you come back. Can create your own meals. I am not interested in your personal data. There is no tracker on there. It's one of the design principles here. I am not interested in any personal data. You can give me your email address, but you can also work completely with just any random username if you want to use all of the data that you've had before. I would say that's the main way to get into contact with me. In terms of social media, I am absolutely incompatible with any algorithmic platform, which means you can find me on Mastodon in the Fediverse, and that link is in the footer of the site of every single page. So you can find two there. One is just my personal one, and one is the nutritional one, which is also called Butterbei die Fische.
Well, thank you. I think that people are going to be able to make some great use of this tool. I know that was how we got started talking, is like I want to share this with everyone, and I can see why there's a lot of excitement behind it, and you've clearly worked very hard to develop this. So thanks for taking the time. I'm sorry that it had to do with the job thing, but it gave you everything happens for a reason, and what happened with your employment turned into this beautiful website with so much information, and I'm just glad that you turned your attention to helping others while you had some time on your you had some time on your hands, and that's what you did with it. It's a beautiful thing. So on behalf of Olaf Kock, I'm Robyn Dobbins. Thank you for listening to our Ketobiography. Bye.
Goodbye.